My neighbor stopped me at the elevator. "Do you know who comes to your place every Friday?" I installed a hidden camera and couldn't believe my eyes. I still remember the doors that morning, a soft metallic sigh, as if the building itself was tired of keeping secrets. I was on my way to work, coffee in one hand, keys in the other, when my neighbor, Mrs. Beatrice Langford, appeared from nowhere. She's the type who knows everyone's business, elegant enough to make you feel underdressed, silver hair in a neat bun, lipstick too red for 9 a.m. "Good morning, Nora," she said. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "May I ask you something personal?" I hesitated. "Sure. What is it?" She leaned in, voice lowered. "Do you know who's going into your apartment, 14B, every Friday afternoon?" For a second, I thought she was joking. I even laughed, a small, confused sound. "What? What are you talking about?" "Oh, I'm sure it's nothing," she said quickly. But her face didn't match her words. "It's just, I've noticed someone entering while you're out, every Friday. I thought maybe a cleaner, or a friend." My fingers tightened around the coffee cup. "No. No one has a key except my husband and me." She nodded slowly, like confirming something she already knew. "Well, maybe check. You can't be too careful, dear." The elevator arrived. She disappeared inside and left that sentence echoing in my head. All day at work, her words gnawed at me. I replayed them between emails and calls, trying to convince myself it was a mix-up. Maybe she had the wrong door. There are 3 identical doors on every floor. Maybe she saw my son, Miles, dropping by to grab something. But Miles lives across town, busy with his new wife, Tessa. He hardly visits at all. That evening, I stood in the hallway a long time, staring at my own door. Everything looked normal. The Yale smart lock, the doormat, even that faint lavender from the air freshener I'd left the previous weekend. Inside, the apartment was spotless, too spotless. I moved room to room, checking drawers, doors, closets, like a fool chasing shadows. Nothing missing, nothing disturbed. And yet I couldn't shake it, the sense that someone had been here. Over dinner, I told my husband, Caleb. He barely looked up from his plate. "You're taking that woman too seriously," he said. "You know how she is, always snooping, always gossiping. She just wants attention." "Maybe," I murmured. But the unease didn't fade. Caleb reached across, squeezed my hand for a moment, then pulled away to check his phone. "Let it go. You'll drive yourself crazy." I couldn't. Not after the way Mrs. Langford looked at me, almost pitying. By the weekend, curiosity had become obsession. I searched online for cheap security cameras, reading reviews at midnight. I ordered one at last. Small, black, easy to hide, motion activated. When it arrived, I set it by the entry, angled toward the front door. I told myself it was just for peace of mind, nothing more. Friday came too quickly. I went to work as usual, tried to focus, pretended I didn't care. By the time I got home, my pulse was racing. I poured a glass of wine, sat on the couch, opened the camera app. The timeline showed a motion alert. 12:47 p.m. My throat went dry. I pressed play. The front door opened. Someone stepped in, slow, confident. I froze. The figure moved into the light, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. It was Tessa, my son's wife, her long blonde hair tied back, a small tote in her hand. She looked around to make sure no one was home, then walked straight to the bedroom. I watched, paralyzed, as she opened my dresser drawer. She wasn't stealing. She was placing something inside, a teal velvet box. Then she took out a perfume bottle, misted the air, bergamot and cedar, smiled faintly, and left. The video ended. I couldn't move. The sound of my own breathing filled the room. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the phone. Why would Tessa come here? And why Fridays? I wanted to confront her at once, but something stopped me. A strange animal fear. Instead, I replayed the video. Then again. Her expression wasn't guilty. It was calm, deliberate, like someone following a routine. I hardly slept that night. Every sound felt wrong. The hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock. I lay beside Caleb, already asleep. his phone a dull glow on the nightstand. My thoughts spiraled. What if he knew? What if they both knew? By morning, I told myself there had to be an explanation, a misunderstanding, a reason that would make sense. Maybe she left a note for Miles. Maybe she thought it was his place. But when I checked the drawer where she'd put the box, my heart stopped. It was gone. Completely gone. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my hands. The air felt heavier, thicker, and I realized something terrifying. Someone had come again after she left. Someone who knew I'd look. Later that day, passing Mrs. Langford in the hall, she smiled her bright, familiar smile. "Everything all right, dear?" she asked sweetly. "Yes," I managed, forcing it. "Everything's fine." She tilted her head, eyes like glass. "Good. I'm glad you're keeping an eye on things." As the elevator doors closed behind her, I felt it. The first real stab of fear. Not fear of what I'd seen, fear of what I hadn't found yet. The next morning, the world felt colder. Sunlight through the curtains looked pale and far away, as if it didn't want to touch me. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at untouched coffee. Yesterday's video kept looping in my head. Tessa's calm face, her careful movements, the soft click of the drawer, the velvet box, gone. Every frame burned into memory. Caleb walked out of the bedroom, shirt half buttoned, humming to himself. He looked at me, smiled absently. "You're up early." His voice sounded normal. Too normal. I searched his face for a crack, any sign of guilt or fear, but he looked exactly the same. The man who shared mornings with me for 19 years, the man who held my hand through miscarriages, mortgages, and my mother's funeral. "Did you sleep at all?" he asked. "Not much." "You worry too much, Nora. You always do." He kissed the top of my head and left for work. The moment the door clicked shut, I exhaled. Long, shaky, like I'd been holding my breath all night. I looked around the apartment. The walls that once comforted me felt strange, distant. Every frame, every piece of furniture suddenly looked like evidence from a life I no longer understood. I played the video again, then rewound, slowed it down. In one frame, right before Tessa left, she turned toward the bedroom mirror and smiled. Not the friendly daughter-in-law smile I'd seen 100 times. A quiet, satisfied smile, almost intimate. The thought rose up before I could stop it. She wasn't alone in this. The thought was too big to face all at once. I paced the living room, hands shaking. I opened the closet, checked the drawer again. Empty. The velvet box was gone, and the space it left was worse than anything you could hold. It was the absence of trust, of safety. By noon, I stopped crying. Something inside me went still, and the stillness felt like strength. Pain burned itself into clarity. I opened my computer and created a new folder. Friday Files. I saved the video, renamed it Record 1. Then I copied it to a USB, labeled Friday Ledger, and hid it in the lining of my coat pocket. For hours I sat in silence, making lists. Who had access to the apartment? The exact times Caleb said he was at work. Tessa's part-time teaching schedule at Seattle Community College. I wasn't a detective. I was just a middle-aged woman with trembling hands and a lifetime of routine. But suddenly, routine was a weapon. I knew everyone's habits. I knew when Caleb's car left the garage, which days Miles called, what Tessa posted online. I could trace them without them ever knowing. I checked my phone, old texts, messages, photos. 2 months ago, Tessa had written, "Thank you for trusting me with the spare key. It's so much easier to pick up Miles's things on Fridays." Friday. The word twisted like a blade. I remembered that day. She brought a pie. She smiled, said Miles forgot a few old boxes. Caleb encouraged me to hand her the key, said she was family. I smiled back, proud of being generous. Foolish. The truth didn't arrive like thunder. It arrived like a slow, steady cut. They were lying to me together. Caleb knew. Tessa came because he allowed it, maybe even invited it. The thought didn't make me scream, didn't make me throw anything. It made me quiet. That night when Caleb came home, I watched him like a stranger on a train, curious, detached, studying every move. He talked about work, dinner, a possible trip to see Miles next month. He didn't notice that I hardly spoke. "You look pale," he said at last. "You sure you're okay?" "Just tired," I said. And for the first time in our marriage, the lie didn't taste bitter. It tasted necessary. After he fell asleep, I sat alone in the dark living room. The city hummed outside, distant, uncaring. I looked at our wedding photo on the shelf. Caleb's arm around me, both of us smiling, like life couldn't be shaken. I felt nothing, no love, no hatred, just the hollow clarity of truth. It wasn't revenge yet, not fully. It was about reclaiming my home, my mind. They thought they could make me doubt myself, like I was some fragile woman slipping from reality. But I wasn't broken. Not anymore. I opened my blue leather notebook and wrote, slow and steady, "Keep pretending everything is fine. Gather proof, not emotion. Do not confront until ready." It was the first plan I'd made in years that was entirely for me. I went to bed at 2 a.m., body exhausted, mind sharp. I lay beside Caleb. His soft snore filled the dark. I realized I wasn't afraid of him anymore, not of what he could do, or say, or hide. The fear had changed shape. It had become focus, precise, calm, waiting. At dawn, I felt different. Not lighter, not happier, solid. My heart still ached, but the ache had direction. I looked in the mirror at the lines around my eyes, the tired woman staring back. "You're not crazy," I whispered. "You're waking up." That day I deleted the video from my phone. At least that's what Caleb would see if he checked. The real copy was safe. I even smiled at him over breakfast, asked about his meeting, kissed his cheek before he left. The new role was almost easy, the calm wife, the trusting woman. Underneath, a different version of me was growing. Quiet, calculating, determined. He had no idea the woman standing in front of him wasn't his wife anymore. She was the beginning of his reckoning. By the following week, my fear had turned into something else, precision. I moved through the day like rehearsing a performance. Every smile, every nod, every casual line was part of a script only I knew. Caleb suspected nothing. He still kissed my cheek every morning, still texted the same dull updates. "Running late, don't wait for dinner." If he noticed my sudden quiet, he didn't show it. Maybe he thought I'd gone numb, or that age was softening me into compliance. That was his mistake. Friday came again. I cracked the kitchen window. Cold air slid in with rain and the low horn of a ferry on the sound. On the counter, the blue leather notebook lay open. I drew 2 columns, proof and to verify. Line 1, 12:47. Motion alert, Tessa enters. Line 2, 12:46. Saw her step off the elevator. Line 3, 17 minutes inside the apartment. I underlined twice. I added, Yale smart lock, change permissions, spare keycard. Who holds it? Note, Harbor and Hearth, Belltown, as a neutral public spot if a quick face-to-face becomes necessary. Banking tasks. Soundview Credit Union, close joint checking, move my legal share to a personal account. Set a reminder for Monday. Late that night, I wiped the counters, took out the trash. The bergamot cedars still clung to the air. A temporary crime scene. I placed the pinhole pen on the shelf facing the hallway, aimed at the teal box's line of sight. I whispered, "Proof, not emotion." My phone buzzed. Miles. "Mom, I'm only free this weekend. Tessa's grading papers." I typed, "All good. I'm teaching." I didn't send it. I set the phone face down. I thought about Whidbey, the wind-quiet cabin, rain on the roof, a place to sort it all if I needed to disappear for 2 days. Before sleep, I looked at Caleb. The hall light drew a thin stripe across his cheek. I wasn't looking for answers there anymore. I would write them myself, clearly, timestamp by timestamp, line by line in Friday Ledger, and when the elevator sighed again next week, I'd be ready to listen. I worked from home that day, pretended I had a mild cold. I set the camera back in its old spot by the door. This time, I added another, a pinhole pen cam on the shelf across the hallway, aimed straight at the drawer. At noon, I locked the Yale smart lock, left 14B, and drove around the block. My hands shook. My mind was clear. I parked near the cafe across the street, Harbor and Hearth in Belltown, sat in the car, and waited. 15 minutes, 25, 30. At 12:46 p.m., I saw her. Tessa. She stepped out of a white hatchback, soft pink sweater, that harmless face I knew too well. She walked into the lobby, keycard dangling. My key. Watching it on a screen was one thing. Seeing it with my own eyes was another. A sick wave rolled through me. Humiliation, anger, and beneath it all, a strange satisfaction. Now it was real. I watched the clock. I took notes. She stayed 17 minutes. I waited longer, 37 minutes from her entry, before I went back up to 14. When I opened the door, the bergamot cedar still hung in the air, thin as mist. I went straight to the drawer, a teal velvet box. This time I opened it. Inside, an old Polaroid, maybe 10 years ago. Caleb and Tessa in our backyard at a family barbecue, standing too close, his hand on her shoulder. I remembered that day. Miles had gone inside for more drinks. I hadn't thought twice about their laughter. Now, everything I'd missed sat naked in my hands. On the back, in her neat round hand, "Old habits don't fade." My throat tightened. I sat on the edge of the bed, the photo trembling between my fingers. This wasn't just an affair. This was a message. I photographed the box, the handwriting, the time. Then I put everything back exactly as I found it. If she wanted to play games, I'd let her, but I would start. That afternoon, I stopped by Chen and Waverly LLP downtown. Ava Chen, an old book club friend, was a partner now. We drank tea in a small conference room. Rain stitched the glass like pins. I told her everything except the affair, only that someone was entering my home without permission. Ava frowned. If you have evidence, you can file for unlawful entry. Even if you once gave a key, using it for something you didn't consent to is still an issue. She leaned in. But think carefully before you involve the police. Once you start, you can't unwind it. Her words caught on the drive home. I didn't want the police, not yet. This wasn't about the law first. It was about truth. My truth. That night, Caleb came home early. Unusually kind. He cooked dinner, poured wine, said we should take a weekend trip, just us, to reconnect. His timing was impeccable. I smiled. Sounds nice. Inside, something twisted. Guilt or strategy? When he slept, I opened his laptop. Careless. One password for everything. I skimmed emails, work, schedules, threads. Then a folder labeled private. My heart hammered as I clicked. A draft. Unsent. T, I think we should slow down. She's starting to notice. Last Friday was too risky. Let me handle this. I didn't realize I'd been holding my breath until the screen blurred. T, Tessa. He hadn't sent it, but he had written it. He had thought it. That was enough. For a moment I stared at the blue light reflected in the dark window beside the bed. My body felt hollow. Glass. Then something inside hardened. Slow. Sure. I copied the draft, emailed it to an anonymous account of my own, and erased every trace. The next morning, the city looked sharper. I made coffee, fed the cat, smiled when Caleb walked into the kitchen. "You seem better today," he said. "I am," I said. "I think I just needed sleep." He kissed my temple, grabbed his briefcase, and left. The latch clicked. The stillness turned electric. For the first time, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like the one in control. I gathered everything: videos, timestamps, screenshots, even the Polaroid. I built a new structure on the Friday ledger drive by layer, video, email, objects, notes. I locked it in a small metal box under the sink behind cleaning bottles. By noon, I was ready for the next step. I called Miles. He sounded rushed. "Hey, Mom, I'm at work. Can we talk later?" "It's about Tessa," I said softly. Silence. "What about her?" "She's been coming into the apartment when I'm out." "That's weird. Why would she—" His tone went defensive, uneasy. I almost pitied him. "That's what I'd like to know." He exhaled. "I'm sure it's nothing. Maybe she wanted to surprise you. Help with something." "Maybe," I said. "Ask her." We hung up. I stared at the black TV screen. In the glass, someone else stared back. Not frightened, not broken. A woman with a plan. I began with small, deliberate moves, hard to notice unless you looked closely. I changed the Yale smart lock permissions, revoked the spare keycard. The locksmith came while Caleb was at work. I left an email. Building manager recommended replacement. That evening, his old key didn't work. He frowned and looked at me. "Oh," I said lightly, "I forgot to tell you. The old lock was acting up." He hesitated, then shrugged. "You should have told me." "You were busy," I said, setting the table. That night, I slept without fear. For the first time in weeks, 14B felt like mine. The next morning, I went to Soundview Credit Union in Ballard. My hands shook a little as I set the papers on the counter. The teller typed briskly, "You have 1 joint checking, 1 savings, and 1 brokerage. What would you like to do today?" "Close the joint checking and move my legal share into a personal account." She blinked. "Do you have your husband's authorization?" I met her eyes. "No, and I don't need it. I'm withdrawing only what's mine." My voice did not shake. When I left, a new card sat in my wallet and a statement with only my name. That paper felt heavier than gold. Back home, the air felt charged, storm close. An unmarked envelope sat on the counter. I slit it with a knife. 1 line inside, "Stop. You don't know what you're doing." My fingers went cold. I lifted the paper to my nose. Bergamot cedar, her scent. That evening, I said nothing to Caleb. I cooked, smiled at his small talk, nodded at the right moments. Inside, I memorized every expression, every word, every glance. When he slept, I tried his phone. The passcode had changed. The next morning, Tessa called. Sweet, almost taunting. "Nora, hi. I just wanted to check if you got my little gift. I left something on the counter." I said nothing. "Nora?" "Yes," I said at last. "I got it." "Good," she purred. "I worried it might get lost. Anyway, coffee sometime, just the 2 of us. Clear the air." "Sure," I said, voice even. "Let's do that." The next day, we met at Harbor and Hearth. She arrived flawless. Hair perfect, dress pressed, lipstick immaculate. She looked like innocence. Only her eyes told another story. "Nora," she said as she sat, "I feel tension between us. I don't want that. We're family." I stirred my coffee slowly. "You've been in my home multiple times without permission," I said. She smiled faintly. "Oh, come on. You gave me the keycard to help Miles." "I said to help Miles, not to sneak in when I'm gone." Her smile widened. "Sneak in? Such an ugly word. Maybe you're just imagining things." I leaned in, voice low, controlled. "I saw you on camera, Tessa." For the first time, her smile sagged. A small crack, but enough. She blinked, glanced away, then back. "Then you should delete it," she said softly. "For your own good." I held her gaze. "I already did." She studied me, hunting for a weakness. Finding none, she picked up her bag and stood. "You're making a mistake," she said. "You don't know who you're dealing with." "Neither do you," I said. She left. That night, Caleb was waiting in the living room. The lights were low, his face unreadable. "Tessa called me," he said. "What the hell are you doing?" "Protecting myself," I said quietly. He stood, voice rising. "From what? Your imagination?" "From the truth," I said. He stepped closer, jaw tight. "You're making a mess you can't clean up." "Then stop me." For a moment I thought he might. Instead, he turned, grabbed his coat, and slammed the door. When the silence settled, I sat on the floor and cried, not because I was weak, because I knew what came next. They would regroup, they would plan, they would come back stronger. I was ready. The next morning, I called Ava Chen. "I need a consultation," I said. "Property separation." "Are you sure?" she asked. "Completely." That weekend, I drove alone to Whidbey Island. I rented a small cabin, brought my laptop, notes, the Friday ledger drive. 2 days of silence. I walked the wet sand, listened to the ferries, sorted every piece of proof. It was the first peace I'd felt in months. By the time I drove home, the plan was clear. No hesitation, no fear. They played in the dark. I would bring everything into the light. 3 days after Caleb stormed out, he came back, calm, polite, carrying a bouquet of white peonies. He set them in a vase. He didn't ask where we stood, didn't mention the fight, as if the air between us hadn't gone poisonous. "I think we should talk," he said, tone carefully neutral. "About everything." "All right," I said, motioning to the chair. He sat, slow, cautious, like approaching a pet that once knew him but might bite now. He started soft. "Nora, I know things have been tense. I should have been more patient. Maybe Mrs. Langford made it worse with the gossip, but I want us to move past it. Together." I looked at the contrition painted over calculation. "Is that what Tessa told you to say?" A flicker crossed his face. Surprise, then irritation. "Tessa doesn't control what I say." "She controls everything else?" I asked. He leaned forward, lowered his voice. "You're making this into something it isn't." "No," I said quietly. "I'm finally making it into what it is." He leaned back, exhaled, forced a laugh. "You've always had an imagination. You used to write stories, remember? Maybe you're just—" "Stop," I cut in. "You don't get to rewrite this one." We were silent a long time. The peonies between us filled the room with a cloying sweetness. At last he stood. "You want space? Fine, but don't make me the villain in your fantasy." As he left, I thought, too late. That night, Tessa called. Her voice was bright. Too bright. "Nora, I'm glad Caleb spoke with you. I think it's time we all had dinner together like a family. Let's not let misunderstandings ruin everything." "Dinner sounds nice," I said. "When?" "Tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Our brownstone, Capitol Hill." "Perfect," I said, and hung up. The next day, I arrived on time. Tessa opened the door in a soft blue dress, barefoot, a glass of wine in her hand. The bergamot cedar drifted over me as she pulled me into a hug, expensive and false. Caleb was at the counter pouring drinks, smiling like a man determined to erase history. Miles was there too, restless, anxious, unaware he was seated in a nest of snakes. Dinner started polite. Conversation stayed on neutral ground. Weather, work, Miles's promotion. Then Tessa leaned in, chin on her hand. "You know, Nora, I've been thinking about the camera. It must have been a misunderstanding. Maybe a cleaner." "I don't hire a cleaner," I said softly. Her smile didn't flicker. "Right. I mean, maybe Caleb—" "I didn't," Caleb said quickly, glancing at me, then at her. "Then maybe someone has a copy of the key card," she offered sweetly. I set my fork down. "Maybe someone does." The silence turned heavy. Miles looked from face to face, confused. "What are we talking about?" "Nothing," Caleb snapped. "Something," I corrected. Tessa stood, forcing a laugh. "You know what? I think we're all just tired. Nora, let's not dig up the past." "The past keeps digging itself up," I said. "Every Friday, to be exact." Her smile froze. Caleb's voice hardened. "Enough." I looked at him. "You want enough? Then tell him." I nodded toward Miles. "Tell your son who you are, or I will." Caleb's face drained. Tessa's hand clamped onto his arm. "Nora," she whispered, "you don't want to do this. Think of your family." "My family?" I said. "You mean the one you've been dismantling piece by piece?" Miles shot to his feet. "What the hell is going on?" Caleb turned to him, desperate. "It's not what your mother thinks," Tessa cut in fast. "She's stressed. She's imagining things. You know how she—" I laughed. Short, cold. They both flinched. "You should have deleted that draft email, Caleb. I think we should slow down, remember?" Tessa's hand slipped from his arm. Miles's eyes widened. "Dad." Caleb's lips moved, but no words came. I stood. "Enjoy your dinner." I left before they could stop me. My hands shook, but a strange calm settled in, like someone who'd just cleared the steepest part of a long climb. Outside, Seattle was cold. Stars pinned above the Capitol Hill roofs like needles. I breathed deep, almost felt power. Back at Shoreline Tower, 14B, I poured a drink and sat in the dark. Their faces, their fear, flickered past. Not victory yet, but the first crack. A few days later, nothing from them. Not a word, almost peaceful. I used the quiet to gather everything. Printed emails, texts, screenshots, even statements showing withdrawals from the joint account to a media retainer. Recipient, Tessa's cousin. I clipped it all into a folder labeled for Ava Chen. By the weekend, I had the full picture. Not just an affair, but manipulation, financial erosion, lies, curated sympathy. They hadn't only betrayed love, they'd been dismantling my life while smiling at me. That night, at the desk, reading the papers, I felt quiet, not numb, not bitter, just clear. The kind of calm that comes after a long storm when you finally see its shape. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger is loud. I needed silence to win. When Caleb texted, "We need to talk," I stared at the message a long time. Then I replied, "Not yet." He called. I didn't answer. Tessa tried. I let it ring. Each vibration reminded me they were the ones chasing now. They wanted me back in their web. They wanted the old Nora. Confused, emotional, forgiving. She was gone. What replaced her was colder, stronger, patient. The woman they underestimated was about to become the thing they feared most. Someone with nothing left to lose. The silence after exposure was almost unbearable. A week passed. No knock at my door. No call from Caleb. No text from Tessa. Even Miles went quiet. At first, I thought I wanted peace. But peace can feel like isolation when you've lived inside chaos. I walked the neighborhood, headphones in, pretending to listen to music, really just listening to my thoughts. One afternoon, I saw Mrs. Langford in the lobby near the mailboxes. Her eyes swept the hall like a thin blade. "Nora," she said, with that mix of warmth and judgment only older women have. "I was beginning to wonder if you'd moved out." "Not yet," I said with a small smile. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. "I heard there was a touch of drama." "Word travels fast," I said. "It always does," she replied. "Don't let them make you the villain, dear. People like that—" She paused, glanced down the corridor. "They wear masks well. You're not the first woman in this building they've tried to make feel crazy." Her tone softened. "Come by for tea sometime. I make a mean lemon cake." For the first time in weeks, I felt something unexpected. Connection. 2 days later, I went. Her apartment smelled of old wood and jasmine. She poured tea, passed the cake, and listened. Not the polite kind of listening. The quiet kind, of someone who's met her own version of betrayal. "My husband," Mrs. Langford said at one point, "used to disappear every Friday, called it poker night. Turned out it was his secretary." I smiled faintly. "What did you do?" "I let him play his game," she said, voice thin as a blade. "Then I marked the cards." We both laughed, small, knowing. When I left her apartment, something in me had shifted. Not forgiveness, not closure, strength. She reminded me I wasn't alone. Women like us survive by watching, by waiting for the beat, and striking when it's time. That night, I slept through for the first time in months. The next afternoon, just as I was about to leave for groceries, there was a knock. I opened the door. Caleb stood there with a bottle of wine. Behind him, Tessa hovered in the hall's shadow, her smile so soft it slipped right off. "Maybe it's time to move forward," they said, conciliatory tones, the melody predators use when they're tired. "All right," I said, stepping aside. "Come in." They sat at the table like actors in a play mid-scene. Caleb poured 3 glasses, handed one to me. I didn't touch it. Tessa began. "Nora, I know you're hurt. We both made mistakes, but destroying this family won't make you feel better." I tilted my head. "Destroying? I'm not the one who dug everything up." Caleb exhaled, rubbed his temples. "We can fix this if we trust each other again." I laughed very softly. "Trust? You mean the kind that disappears every Friday?" Caleb's eyes sharpened. "Enough." Tessa's eyes flashed, then she wrapped it back in a smile. "Please, Nora, we're adults. You can't hold on to resentment forever. It will eat you alive." Her words were so polished that for a second I almost admired the craft. "Resentment?" I said. "No, I call it memory." Tessa's jaw tightened. "You don't know everything. Then enlighten me." Caleb stood, his tone turning firm. "Listen, we all made mistakes. You can't punish us forever." I stood too, cold, clear. "I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself." Tessa's mask cracked. "You think you can erase us? Make us disappear?" I smiled. "No, Tessa. You'll do that yourselves." Caleb slammed his glass on the table. Wine splashed the bouquet of white peonies, red spreading like cranberry on the petals. So symbolic it was almost too on the nose. "Insane," he snarled. "Maybe," I said, "but I'm insane with evidence." Tessa grabbed her bag, face gone pale. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "I already regret knowing you," I said. They left. The door slammed. The sound echoed like a gunshot. When the quiet returned, my heartbeat slowed. I was afraid, yes, but it was a clean fear. Sharp. Steadying. It didn't weaken me. It anchored me. That evening I went to Mrs. Langford's. She didn't ask questions. She handed me tea. "Let me sit." "You look like you've seen ghosts," she said. "I have," I whispered, "and they were alive." She chuckled softly. "Then it's time to bury them, too." That night, I opened the blue leather notebook, but not for lists, for a statement, dates, actions, words. I began building a record, not just for Ava Chen, but for myself. A map of the ground I had covered and how far I was willing to go. Writing no longer felt like desperation. It felt like purification. Each line took a little of their power away and returned it to me. Near midnight, I closed the notebook, whispered into the room, "They think I'm afraid." The apartment answered with a thin, steady hum. "I'm not afraid," I said louder, and for the first time, I believed it. It happened on a Friday. The day began like any other. Seattle gray, a fine rain, the city moving in its quiet rhythm. I woke early, made coffee, stood at the window and watched the streetlights fade. There was something electric in the air, inevitable. I didn't plan what happened next. Maybe everything had been pushing toward it. Near noon, Ava Chen called. "I filed the initial petition," she said. "They'll be served next week." "Thank you," I said, voice steady. "Nora," she added carefully, "once this starts, you can't go back." "I don't want to go back." I hung up and looked around Shoreline Tower. 14B, the apartment that had held my worst humiliation and my rebirth. Everything was in order. Cameras removed. The Friday ledger drive tucked under the sink behind the metal cleaners. I was ready. At 3:00 p.m., a knock. Not polite, not hesitant, firm, deliberate. I opened the door. Caleb stood there, face pale, jaw clenched. Tessa behind him, eyes red from crying, or performing. "Can we come in?" he asked. I stepped aside. Of course. Been a while since Friday, hasn't it? He didn't answer. They sat on the sofa, smaller than I remembered. Caleb cleared his throat. Ava Chen called me, he said. She told me about the petition. Good, I said. Saves me the trouble. Nora, Tessa began, this has gone too far. Divorce, legal filings. What are you trying to prove? That actions have consequences, I said. Caleb leaned forward. You're destroying everything. The house, the finances. Miles will never forgive you. I smiled slightly. Miles already knows. They froze. I told him yesterday. He didn't believe me at first. He will. He'll see the emails, the recordings. He'll see who you both are. Tessa's composure cracked. You didn't do that. I did. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. She looked to Caleb. He was staring at me. Not angry anymore. Afraid. What do you want? He asked at last. The truth, I said simply. Say it. Right now. He hesitated. His face hardened. It's over, Nora. Saying it won't change anything. Say it. Fine, he snapped. Yes, I was with her. It happened. Is that enough? It shouldn't have. Don't, Tessa trembled. He turned to her. Don't what? Lie again? Pretend it didn't? You promised. I promised a lot of things, he said, bitter. None of them held. I watched in silence. The confession, raw, ugly. They were unraveling under their own words. Tessa sprang up, pacing. You think you've won, don't you? Think this makes you better? You were never enough for him, Nora. That's why he came to me. I didn't move. Then why are your hands shaking? She stalled. The hand holding her wine glass trembled. Because you turned this into a nightmare, she shouted. You won't let go. You're obsessed. Maybe, I said softly. But at least I don't need to lie to breathe. Caleb slammed his palm on the table. Stop it, both of you. His voice cracked. You've turned this into hell. I looked at him, calm as ice. No, Caleb. You did that years ago. I just turned on the lights. He stared, eyes wild, like a man realizing he was trapped. You think anyone will believe you? They don't have to, I said. The evidence speaks. Tessa's voice fell to a whisper. You'll regret this, Nora. You don't know how cruel I can be. Oh, I do, I said. I've watched you practice. She went quiet. Caleb rubbed his face, hoarse. You've destroyed everything. I stood. No, I destroyed the illusion. There's a difference. Outside, Seattle rain thickened, drumming on the glass, an echo of the storm in the room, cleansing and inevitable. At last, Tessa snatched her purse. Let's go, Caleb. She's insane. He didn't move. His eyes stayed on me. You planned all of this? Yes, and that's why it worked. He rose slowly, shoulders sagging. You'll be alone, Nora. You'll end up with nothing. I met his eyes. Nothing is better than living in your lie. They left, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. I stood still, breathing in the quiet that followed. Not peace. Aftermath. The air thick, charged by what had just broken. I poured water, sat at the table. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I felt empty, a clean emptiness, like the space left after you throw poison away. That night, Miles called. His voice was small, confused. Mom, I talked to Dad. He admitted it, all of it. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, I said. Just live differently than he did. A long pause. Then softly, I'm proud of you. When the call ended, I sat a long time, watching the rain smear the window. My reflection looked back, calm, unflinching, unfamiliar. For the first time, I saw the shape of victory. Not joy, not relief, the absence of fear. The masks were gone, the truth was out. What remained was mine. The hearing at King County Courthouse came faster than anyone expected. Caleb tried to stall. His lawyer filed motion after motion to drag it out, to grind me down. But Ava Chen was quiet steel. She prepared every document, every timestamp, every image. I barely had to speak. The evidence did. On the day, I dressed simply. Black suit, hair pulled back, no jewelry. I wanted to look like the truth itself. Calm, unadorned, undeniable. Tessa sat 2 rows behind Caleb, pretending she wasn't there for him. Gray dress, face composed to the point of strain, fingers twisting her sleeve. But her eyes betrayed her, darting, anxious, brittle. Caleb's lawyer spoke first, painting me as unstable, paranoid, a woman undone by her own imagination. I sat still, eyes forward, every breath measured. Then Ava stood. "Mrs. Bennett," she said, "would you describe what you found on your home security camera?" "There's nothing worse than having to keep living inside your lie." They left together, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I stood still, listened to the space that followed. Not quite peace. Aftershock. Air thick and electric after a major storm when everything has shattered but hasn't settled. I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the table. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. Only emptiness remained. But a clean emptiness, like the space left after you flush a toxin from your body. That night, Miles called, his voice low, unsure. "Mom." I talked to Dad. He admitted, "Everything. I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything, honey. Just live differently than he did." A long pause, then softly, "I'm proud of you." After the call, I sat for a while, looking through the rain-blurred window over Seattle. My reflection looked back, calm, unfamiliar, unafraid. For the first time, I understood what victory looks like. Not joy, not relief. The absence of fear. The masks had fallen. The truth had spoken. And what remained belonged to me. The hearing at King County Courthouse moved faster than anyone expected. Caleb tried to stall. His lawyer filed motion after motion, dragging, threatening. But Ava Chen was better, quiet, sharp, unyielding. She prepared every line of metadata, every timestamp still, and camera log. When the day came, I dressed simply. Black suit, hair pulled back, no jewelry. I wanted to look like the truth, calm, unadorned, undeniable. Tessa sat 2 rows behind Caleb, pretending she wasn't there for him. Gray dress, composed face, fingers worrying a sleeve hem. But her eyes betrayed her. Quick glances, worry, fragility. Caleb's lawyer spoke first, painting him as the victim of an unstable wife. Said I was paranoid, said imagination had undone me. I sat still, eyes forward, breath counted and even. When it was Ava's turn, she stepped up. "Mrs. Bennett," she said, "would you describe what you observed on your home security camera?" I answered, precisely, without flourish. "Did you ever authorize your daughter-in-law to enter while you were away?" "No." "Did you confront her?" "Yes." Her response? She told me I imagined it. Ava handed the judge time-stamped screenshots. "These are from my client's system, the same individual entering multiple times without consent." Opposing counsel objected. The judge waved it off. The images were irrefutable. When Caleb testified, he avoided my eyes. He spoke of misunderstandings, lapses, regret, words that sounded hollow, rehearsed. Then Ava asked, "Did you write this email?" She placed the unsent draft on the table. He stared a long time, then said quietly, "Yes." Tessa bowed her head, all color gone. When it was over, the court ruled in my favor. Full ownership of Shoreline Tower, 14B, half of all marital assets, and a permanent no-contact order. Caleb's lawyer muttered, "Appeal," but even he knew it was pointless. Outside, local reporters clustered, hungry for a Rain City betrayal story. I walked past without a glance. Caleb and Tessa stood on the stone steps, small, spent, stripped of the arrogance that once defined them. For a moment, I almost felt pity. Then I remembered the envelope that smelled like Tessa's perfume, the L, we should slow down draft, and the sound of Caleb calling me crazy. Pity died before it could form. That night, I opened the wine I'd saved from our 20th anniversary, poured a glass, sat by the window, and let the city lights splinter through the bowl. Victory didn't feel grand. It felt clean. In the weeks that followed, consequences played out like slow theater. Caleb moved into a rental in Ballard. His company discovered he'd been misusing funds, small amounts, but enough to make them look closer. Within a month, he was forced to resign. Tessa's world collapsed faster. The whispers spread, not about the affair, but about unlawful entry, forged impressions, manipulation. The university cut her teaching contract after someone sent the video to the department chair. Nothing public, but the quiet kind of ruin was enough. I didn't lift a finger. I didn't need to. Truth, once released, finds its own way. One afternoon, an unaddressed envelope arrived, handwriting I knew instantly, Caleb's. "Nora, I hope you're satisfied. You've taken everything. I'm in a motel now. Miles won't pick up. Tessa's gone. I don't blame you anymore. You were right about everything. I just didn't think you'd go this far. I guess you won." I folded the letter neatly, slid it into the bottom drawer beside the Friday Ledger USB. I didn't need to reply. The next weekend, Miles came by. He looked tired, older somehow, as if the whole storm had added years to his face overnight. He hugged me for a long time. "I don't know how you did it," he said quietly. I stopped pretending. He nodded. "Dad's moving to Florida. Says he wants a fresh start. Good for him. And Tessa? She chose her own ending." He studied me for a long moment. "You're different now. I'm free." He smiled, sad. Maybe that's the same thing. After he left, I sat in the quiet apartment. Late light slid across the glass, laying golden bands on white walls. Everything looked the same, the old walls, the old table, but all of it felt new. The apartment belonged to me again. I went downstairs for the mail. Mrs. Langford stood by the boxes as always, her eyes cut sideways with a playful glint. "So, you finally cleaned house?" I smiled. "Something like that." She leaned in, voice low. "Good. They never expect women like us to win." I smiled back. Then they should start learning. On the way up, I paused at the hallway window. The city spread below in silver blue light, steady and quiet. My reflection met mine, the woman I used to be, afraid, apologizing for existing. Gone. Someone else remained, sharper, stiller, steadier. It wasn't happiness, it was justice, the kind that doesn't need applause, only silence. Caleb and Tessa had built their world out of lies. I tore it down with the truth, and the rubble suited them better than any sentence ever could. Strange how silence changes shape. Months ago it was suffocating. Now it is light, deliberate, chosen. The world hadn't changed. I had. It's been nearly half a year since the hearing. Life has a rhythm again. Not joy, but peace. I rise early, draw the curtains, let the morning spill across the kitchen floor. The apartment recognizes me as its rightful owner. I started teaching a writing class at the Capitol Hill Community Center. It began as a small volunteer thing, a circle of women rebuilding their lives. Some came from divorce, some from loss, some from silences deeper than mine. I don't tell them my whole story. I don't need to. They hear it in the way I listen, in the steadiness of my voice. On Fridays, I still make coffee at 1 o'clock, a quiet ritual. Sometimes habit turns my eyes toward the door. No one comes anymore. New locks, old ghosts gone. Friday has become just another day. Miles visits more often. He brings photos of his new place, stories about coworkers, and sometimes just sits. We don't need to fill the quiet. The crack between us has healed into a scar, visible but closed. He rarely mentions his father. Last I heard, Caleb sold his last car and moved to Naples, Florida. Sometimes he emails, polite, distant. I read them, then archive them. No reply needed. I don't hate him anymore. Hate takes energy, and I've given him enough. Tessa, I hear, is still in Seattle. Part-time at a real estate office. Or maybe not. Rain season rumors blur with time. Once, I saw her across the street. Thinner, shoulders folded in, eyes wary, like someone bracing for the next hit. Our eyes met for a second. She looked away. I didn't. I watched her hurry past, tight, tense, and felt nothing. Not triumph, not pity, just the quiet recognition of the one still standing in the rain. The truth didn't set me free. I was free when I stopped fearing it. Some debts repay themselves. Mrs. Langford still greets me in the Shoreline Tower hallway, though her steps are slower now. We trade small things, the weather, the new tenant, the elevator that always sticks between 7 and 8. Sometimes she gives me that knowing smile, the kind that says she remembers everything and doesn't need to say a word. Life has grown smaller and clearer. I tend the peonies on the windowsill. I read before bed. On weekends, I walk the loop around Lake Union. There is a peace in the ordinary, something I once swore I'd never want again. Sometimes I catch my reflection in the glass. A woman, not afraid, not fragile, not waiting for someone else to tell her what is true. Her eyes are steady. Her mouth is calm. I learned that freedom doesn't look like a celebration. It looks like stillness. One evening I drove to the edge of the city, to the same overlook where Caleb and I used to stop on road trips. A high ledge above the Duwamish River, cold wind, heavy gold light. Nothing had changed. The wood railing, the hum of traffic below. I stood there for a while, wind threading my hair. For the first time I let myself think about all of it. Not the pain, but the road that brought me here. It began with a small question in a hallway, in Mrs. Langford's voice. "Do you know who comes to your apartment every Friday?" I smiled at the memory, not bitter, grateful. That sentence burned my old world down. It also built the one I live in now. The sun dropped. The river turned amber. I closed my eyes and breathed in. The air smelled of rain and distant pine. When I opened them, the sky was violet. City lights flickered on like small constellations, each one steady, enough. Driving back, I passed the Belltown Cafe where Tessa once smiled and told me I was imagining things. The sign was gone, windows boarded, building sold. For a moment I thought about stopping. I didn't. Some places deserve to stay closed. At home, I poured lavender tea and sat by the window. Outside, Seattle was quiet. Inside, the apartment held the soft scent of dried flowers. I took the blue leather notebook from the drawer, the one that carried the darkest months. I turned to the final page, the one still blank. For the first time, I knew exactly what to write. Friday, 6:47 p.m. No visitors, no ghosts, just me. I closed the notebook. A faint tremor ran through the leather, an ending, clean and right. Down in the courtyard, I saw Mrs. Langford locking her mailbox. She looked up, found me in the window, and gave a small nod. I answered with a small smile. The world kept moving. Buses, footsteps, the faraway metallic hum. In that motion, I found my peace. The war was over. They lost everything, control, image, illusion, and I lost only what never belonged to me. No happy ending, no tragedy either, just truth, clean, sharp, final. The kind that doesn't fade, the kind you can build a new life on. If this story found a little quiet in you, leave it where you're listening. Around here, we do justice by staying quiet.